welcome back to another part of this F1 25 My Team Career Mode. This is part number 13 today for the Singapore Grand Prix off the back of absolute devastation and pain at the Italian Grand Prix. It was going so well. We maybe could have had a podium, and instead it ended up in smoke as we suffered our first engine failure of the season. Maybe it was overdue, but in the context of now an era-defining rivalry with Williams for the very first time with any team, era-defining. Very, very quickly, this new rivalry system seems to be going in F1 25, you know, from the feedback from last year's game where it was basically far too slow. In a way, maybe it's now far too fast. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, not ideal to have an engine failure when we're losing to Williams in the Constructors' Championship and therefore that rivalry. It was the control electronics that blew up Jensen's engine, of all things. Like, I really thought it would have been one of the other parts, because at times in the earlier part in the season, there's been other components that have been very highly worn, obviously ones that typically slow you down. But the control electronics, that's the one that goes. And the problem is, that second control electronics, by the way, that's now in red, that blew up. That was the better one of the two I had for JB. That one was still in the green. My other one is in the orange or yellow. So it means we're going to have to take a brand new control electronics, which will mean a penalty for JB. So that's just frustrating. In the middle, remember, of his contract talks. Right now, we've sent him a counteroffer, and we don't know how that's coming back yet, but that's in the middle of this engine failure, and then now having to take another control electronic. So it's really not the most ideal timing in that sense, but who knows how much it will play into it. You know, I'm not familiar with the mechanics on F1 25. I don't know whether, you know, the timing of an engine failure like that will really hurt Button's perception. I guess we'll find out as and when we hear back from the contract. But right now, we're just focusing on the car. We did get a little extra R&D to help us out from that engine failure, so we're just now obviously getting on to some more air upgrades, because for the first time we've got that new set of air upgrades in you know, opened up with the breakthrough we upgraded. But I really was quite keen on buying dual development, but I didn't realize, look at this, unavailable requires improved comms development. So not only is it a phase 2 upgrade, the dual development, I didn't know this. There are certain upgrades in the facilities where you have to buy another one from like phase 1 before you are eligible for that one. So not only did we have to get to phase 2, which we've done, I now need to buy this improved comms development. I never bought it in the first place because I didn't think it was that important in terms of its benefit, its like actual direct benefit. But if it's going to unlock dual development, I'll buy it. So we've spent a fair bit of cash, or we are spending a fair bit of cash in this episode. Then we've got 2 engineering facility upgrades on the go, and that's thanks to obviously the personnel upgrade, I think it was, wasn't it, that we bought like an episode or 2 ago, that allowed us to buy 2 facility upgrades at the same time, because that was locked away, remember, as well. So I'm loving the management on this game where there's so many hoops you have to go through, and it slows you down so much on purpose and gives you so much more gameplay of managing things correctly with your amount of cash you've got, the R&D we've got, of course, and just kind of, you know, timing all of that. And then at the same time, I think it's definitely made the challenge a lot harder for the My Team car, for this team, basically, because if this was F1 23 or before, I think we would have continued the rate of development we showed in the first 7 episodes. But since like episode 7, I think you'll agree, we've really slowed down to the point where we've had some very painful races, and, you know, teams we were quicker than before are now quicker than us once more, as we continue to, you know, deploy our owner perks, and we purchase one on the personnel side of things to try and boost that area. I was tempted to go with another contract negotiation perk, but I thought instead go for one about gaining fan rating every time we get a facility upgrade. I felt like, you know, with the amount of facility upgrades we're doing, that would be quite a benefit if we're getting a fan rating boosting every time we do that, because that would make sense in real life. You know, the factory grows and you build new buildings and your fans believe in you more. I think it makes sense, so I thought we would go for that one as we just continue to roll through upgrades. Basically, I would go into more detail about what we're doing, but to be fair, you guys can see what I'm doing on screen, and I'm doing so many different, I'm having to juggle so many different upgrades, developing, researching them, that it's hard to keep track of them verbally, but you guys can see on screen what we're doing. As we get, though, a shock email in. I mean, I don't know how shocking it is, but the news is that Fernando Alonso is retiring from Formula 1. I've seen some of you guys say in the comments that you've even had some bigger names retiring from the grid in Season 1. Well, Alonso's a big name, but obviously you can see why he might retire in his old age. So that will open up the door for Aston Martin to get someone new. Will they finally shake things up for both seats and get rid of Lance Stroll? Probably not, but in terms of our development then, we have got that comms upgrade in, so now I can buy, finally, 13 episodes in, the dual development facility. So we can finally develop 2 parts at the same time in one slot. So now, if I want to, we can get parity for both sides of the garage. I was about to say both drivers, but obviously in the future it may not necessarily be these same 2 drivers, but it will be parity between both of our cars, both of our side of the garages, and down the line that will be really useful when we're in, you know, much more ferocious constructors battles. Not to say obviously the one we're in right now with Williams isn't. Obviously I'm trying my best, but if it's going to like a top 3 spot in the constructors in, like, you know, a season or two's time, the championship in, like, you know, in season 3 or whatever, like, that's when it will be really useful to have that parity with the dual development. As we just go through the story, kind of, you know, the events in the activity timeline, we got actually a booster from one of the decisions we made previously, a 10% bump on the engineering facility, I think that was. Speaking of engineering, we get the research expansion aero upgrade coming in. So I don't know if I showed this to you last episode. Hopefully I did mention it, but I bought the research expansion aero, so this will allow us to research 2 aero parts at the same time. I thought, you know, like with the chassis, it's a big area for us, aero and chassis. I know we've poured a lot into powertrain actually so far, more so than chassis and aero, but now's the time to shift focus back to aero and chassis, because as much as there's been some straight line speed issues versus the AI, I'm also noticing at circuits where you need higher downforce, that's where the car is struggling a little bit in race pace terms, because we just don't have that pure downforce to match. And also, you know, we want to try and get some drag reduction in there, some weight reduction in the chassis thing. So we're focusing now more on chassis and aero. And powertrain, to be fair, we've kind of banked a load of powertrain upgrades that we've researched, but we've only got 1 slot of development on the on the powertrain side of things. So it's like a trickle feed of upgrades from the engine side of thing, which in a way I don't know, kind of nice to have like a slow drip feed of engine upgrades coming in throughout this last part of the season. But the aero and chassis is where we're really delving into. But I think we've got a lot going on right now. We've got 4 parts researching. We've developed, I think, about 3 or 4 parts going into before this Singapore Grand Prix. We've obviously spent a fair bit of money on facilities, so this has actually been probably one of the biggest episodes for me in terms of spending money and spending R&D, and we're going to spend some more R&D by accepting a university talk there. I think, you know, even though it's like a little bit of R&D lost, you know, in terms of real terms, I'll always be up for doing like a uni talk with an F1 team, because speaking from personal experience, when I was in uni as an engineering student, that was really, really cool when F1 teams would come visit and someone would kind of give a lecture when they're from an F1 team. But this is how the R&D chart is. It's hard to actually tell how our upgrades into Singapore are doing, because this only updates us from Italy, so we actually won't know where we stack up. Even this vehicle performance comparison It's a little bit frustrating, actually. It doesn't update to the Grand Prix we're up to, so this isn't a true picture of where we are. I reckon we've leapfrogged back ahead of VCarb, and we're nearer to Haas again, but we won't know until next episode when we look at the R&D chart, because they've actually taken away the feature where you can look at the R&D chart once you've loaded into the race weekend, which was always useful, because that would give you the most up-to-date chart. So that's a little frustrating. I'll actually be trying to note that down in some feedback in the forums to hopefully get that maybe put back in, because that would be really, really useful just to know going into a race weekend. But either way, anyway, we know we've got a bunch of upgrades. Let's just believe in it, and let's now swap over to driving as Tim Tramnitz as we go into Singapore.
As night falls in Singapore, the track starts to warm up, and it'll be red hot by the time we find out who's on pole for tomorrow's race. Time to set the grid then. Welcome along to qualifying here in Singapore.
So if you were keeping attention to the assigning parts screen beforehand, you may have seen we did basically assign most of the new upgrades going towards JB. Although, to be fair, because we had so much time till this Grand Prix, I think most of the new parts have actually gone on both cars. I think there's only 2 upgrades, one of them being a durability one, the other one being a powertrain one, that have gone to Button. Either way, though, little bit of a better car on the other side of the garage. Meanwhile, back in our car, you may be seeing that icon on the right is red. Don't worry, it's only for the, the energy store, which is nearly to 70%. The thing is, that's the energy store that's got the least wear for Tramnit's car, and I didn't want to take a penalty with Tramnitz as well as JB. Obviously, we expect him to have one for the control electronics, so I'm going to have to deal with that. The worst thing that will happen, in my opinion, is maybe there's a little bit less battery available, because that's generally what happens when the energy store's too worn, is you get reduced capacity of the battery pack. But around any circuit, Singapore is probably, like Monaco, not too bad. I mean, there are obviously way more straights compared to Monaco where you can make a difference in a straight line, but I'm hoping we'll be all right, basically. So we're going through the motions then in Q1, and thankfully that second lap was much better for us. Over 1 second gained to get us up into Q2. JB looking pretty strong there in P8, splitting a Williams and a V-Carb. Haas again with Ocon looking pretty strong. Both McLarens looking better, because Leclerc, what is that? P15. He's going to have to pull up his socks a little bit, and Fernando Alonso having announced his retirement. Maybe this is why Alonso's announced his retirement, because I don't know what's happened to Aston. The last 3 episodes, they've gone from that amazing, what was it, top 5 Alonso had, and then the last 3 episodes they've been down and out in Q1. What is going on? Is their car just broken at the moment, and Alonso's seen enough and fancies retiring now? It's very, very odd. It's the first time we've not really seen a team line up with the R&D chart. Alpine and Williams definitely look as good as they seem on the R&D chart. Aston is still up there on paper, but they're getting knocked out in Q1 now consistently. What is going on with them? I think we're about to get knocked out in Q2, because that's my only soft tyre. That's my only new soft tyre, and it's only P13. It's going to be us out. It's frustrating, but we're 4 tenths away from the knockout. To be fair, Max Verstappen almost got knocked out in the same session as us again. Both of us were knocked out in Q1 in Italy, but this time Verstappen just about makes it through. Button makes it through, so that's promising that his car, with this slightly, quicker performance package, is through with both Williams, which is crucial for our little rivalry. Both Haas are through, though. Ocon and Behrman doing a stellar job. Both Ferraris, both McLaren. So it's a very competitive top 10, and it's a shock again for Mercedes, both being knocked out before the top 10 shootout. We're out, unfortunately, with Tramnitz, but we only had 1 lap, and it wasn't a particularly good one. Hopefully we can make up for it in the race, but maybe JB's upgrades are making that little bit of a difference there. I don't know, but Singapore is going to be a real tough one on the tyres, so there's going to be opportunities maybe to see what we can do with that. Let's go to the grid.
Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Norris, Piastri, Carlos Sainz and Albon, Ocon, Button, Behrman and Liam Lawson, Antonelli, Tramnitz, Yuki Tsunoda and Hamilton, Russell, Bortoletto, Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso, Doohan, Hadjar, Stroll and Nico Hulkenberg rounds off the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. And alongside me for the first time this season here in the commentary box, Naomi Schiff. Hello, Gnomes. Well, they've done so well this year, the 11th team, but that means that next year could be that little bit tougher because, as we all know, the better you do, the higher you finish in the championship, the less development time in the wind tunnel you get the following season.
Yeah, I mean, you could take a bad thing in this situation and turn it into a great thing. The fact that they get a little bit more testing time seems like not much on paper, but truthfully, in the wind tunnel, all the extra time you can get can make a world of difference in terms of your results. So things are looking on the up.
So, to my surprise, I mentioned just before we went to the grid sequence that tyre wear, is going to be a factor here. It's actually a one-stop, it's telling me, on the strategy screen. For this circuit, compared to others we've already been to, maybe this is the tyre upgrade, the one tyre upgrade we've done on the car so far. Maybe that's just tipped this car over to be able to do a one-stop at Singapore, and maybe that means in Season 2 we might be able to make some of those two-stop races we've already done into one-stops. I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical, but we're going to go for it. And the one stop that's been given to us is starting on hards, and it seems like a lot of people around us are doing the same thing. As we're up to P12 with someone having a penalty. I think it's Lewis Hamilton, because he's actually behind us in P14, so that's pretty big. One of the Ferraris trying to chase down the championship leader is now behind us as we go to lights out, and we're underway for this Singapore Grand Prix. JB qualified in P8 as we're squirreling around trying to desperately get the power on. We're going to lunge Antonelli, one of the people we are considering for a contract next season, and we're driving as the man who is opposing him, who's already in the team, Tim Tramnitz, who up to P10 then. Button trying to go around the outside of Ollie Behrman, one of the odd ones out on the medium tyres. The two Williams I can see are side by side ahead of us. Can Button get through on Behrman? I'm not going to get stuck in here. I'm going to give Button priority to try and get this overtake done, but it looks like Behrman will just have enough to get that through, so we'll slot in, and it's very Noah's Ark from P3 down to P10. 2 McLarens, 2 Williams, 2 Haas, 2 AAR cars as Tsunoda and Hamilton squabbling. That's pretty big. That's unfortunate for Lewis with the engine penalty then, because he's been on a real big run of form, of course, multiple Grand Prix wins in a row then, before Leclerc obviously stole the show at the Italian Grand Prix. But, Ferrari 3 wins in a row. They're on the up and up, and this could just unsettle them a little bit. Hamilton being down the order. I mean, Leclerc's still up there, but look at Verstappen then, leading the way by nearly 2 seconds, and we've not even finished lap 1. What is going on? I know Red Bull have become the quickest team on paper and brought upgrades, but this is crazy. Verstappen and Red Bull clapping back in this season, are they? Because at one point they were floundering, being knocked out of Q2 for a few episodes in the mid-bar. Honestly, it's been crazy. It's been so good to see over the course of just 13 episodes of this first season. We've had so many ups and downs of McLaren starting strong, then dipping. You've got Ferrari starting really weak and then getting so strong and then maybe dipping again here. And then Red Bull, strong, weak, and then strong again. All because of Verstappen, really, because Tsunoda's down the order. It's been really quite something as we now focus back on our race then. Lap 2, we're taking it easy because I'm still very skeptical about this one stop. So I'm just kind of almost going through the motions, sitting behind Button, almost at a bit of a distance you can see on the straight, so I'm not wanting to use battery too much, because with a little bit of distance between us, we're just making sure we're not getting too much turbulent hot air behind JB, and looking to see if he can make his way past Behrman before we attack, as Antonelli is making moves behind, and he gets past Liam Lawson in the V-carb. Doohan gets done, I think, by, it does just about gets ahead of Bortoletto, sorry, but the two Alpines also having a horrendous race. down in P16 and 19. What is going on? This Singapore Grand Prix is tipping the predictions of the R&D chart on its head. Aston, Alpine, way down the order. Red Bull right up there with Verstappen. And obviously Hamilton in a world of pain in traffic at the moment. And we're in a world of pain now. 4 laps later, we're still behind Button and Behrman. And now look at the mini-map. Behrman is a slowpoke. His medium tyres are clearly wearing out. He doesn't have the pace, but Button's unable to overtake, and I am still being a little bit cautious here. But now with Antonelli piling on the pressure onto me, you got Tsunoda on mediums. I think Hamilton's on hards behind, but you know, top 3 teams or top 4 teams behind me. The pressure's on. I can no longer be patient with Jensen. We need to overtake him. If he can't make his way past Behrman, I'm going to have to. It seems like it's one of those races where Button just isn't feeling the groove. I mean, it's possible, like in real life, we see drivers sometimes just having an off-race weekend. It might be the case for Button, because we saw at other places like Miami. Remember how well Button did as an AI in Miami. Like, really awesome overtakes, and in previous races as well. So it may just be one of those off races for Button's AI. So let's try and just close right up. We've got some great traction through that corner. This section's so good for the lighting, by the way, on the graphics. It looks unbelievable, this part of the circuit, as we go round the outside of JB and swap positions for P9 and 10. A little bit of squirreling on the rear end, but overall, I think you'll agree, not too much fuss there. This is maybe the reason why, though, unfortunately, as we see Button, he's well under pressure from Antonelli. Oi, oi, oi. JB nearly put Kimi in the wall there. Antonelli on the outside. That could be awkward if they end up being future teammates, as Antonelli nearly eats the wall. Button tried his best to defend, fair play to him, but just couldn't do it, and he very much doesn't look like he's complete on pace today, as we are on pace to overtake Ollie Behrman. We had plenty of fighting with our fellow compatriot, my personal fellow compatriot, obviously not Tim Tramnitz, the German F3 driver. We've had a fair few fights with Behrman at the start of the season, then we kind of never really saw him for a little bit, but now Haas have returned to the top 10 fight with us, basically, as we try and get our way in for the last few points. Is Antonelli now, lap 10, making the move on Behrman. Button still nowhere near. You can see he is struggling, and he is now actually holding up Tsunoda and Hamilton. Hamilton, P13. He is got to be in a world of pain in that cockpit. He's going to be screaming out for his team to do something different on strategy, because he's stuck at the moment. And for us, well, now we've got clean air to start seeing what we can do chasing after Ocon, but he's got pretty good pace right now. The one Williams of Sainz right up near the 2 McLarens and Ferrari. And then there's a, oh my God, what? There's an 11.5 second gap. Verstappen has been lapping at basically a pace of 1 second a lap quicker than everyone behind him. Oh my days. This is an absolute slapping. Verstappen is just getting it out on the table and showing it all, isn't he? Because that is crazy. Mental stuff. What kind of upgrades have Red Bull got? FIA, do we need to check that? That's unbelievable. So you've got Sainz then right up near the McLarens and the Ferrari. That's pretty crazy for Williams, and not great news for me, obviously, trying to fight back against Williams. I get the feeling the rivalry may be dead, in terms of Williams might just have it, you know. And in terms of this race, of what more we can do at the moment, it's feeling a little bit difficult, you know. We're the odd one out on the hards here. Behrman behind on mediums, Ocon as well. The gap is 6.5 at this stage. I was hoping Ocon would start to feel the tyre wear like Behrman, but lap 11, the gap's grown to 7.7, you can see on the top left, and my hards aren't feeling too great. It's almost like these hards went through a bit of a graining phase, like we see in real life, where they just felt awful for these laps. But then what happened, surprisingly, is I just soldiered on, dug a little bit deeper, and then lap 13, all of a sudden, we're back in pace the car felt a bit better, and Ocon is now down under 6 seconds. So the gap grew, and then it shrunk to Ocon, and is coming down rapidly now as we go on through this first stint. The gap is 3.3, as Ocon is probably going to pit now, maybe, I think, along with Albon. Yes, he is. So yeah, we brought the gap down from nearly 8 seconds to 3.3 in the matter of like 4 laps. So yeah, really, really odd behavior. It was either a case of Ocon's tyres felt really great and then completely went off, or I think my hards, it felt honestly like they were going through a bit of a bad phase, and then I kind of just drove through it and they got better. And that happens in real life. You can get tyre graining, and if you keep driving through it, sometimes the graining clears, and it is almost like that was happening with me, because we just found much better pace in those later laps. And at this stage now, lap 17, I'm just looking to extend as much as we can. Antonelli came in on lap 17. I was scheduled to come in on lap 17 as well, but I thought to extend my hard tyre stint by 1 more lap. The tyre icon is nearly brick orange to red as Leclerc, who's made his stop, comes through to overtake us. But we're in. I think that is an unbelievable hard stint from ourselves there, as Leclerc set to fastest lap of the Grand Prix, trying his best to do anything to catch Verstappen, but it doesn't look likely. But that, yeah, I'm really proud of that hard tyre stint, because now we've got 1 less lap to do on mediums, and we saw sometimes in the case of Behrman, that medium was awful for him, and then for Ocon it was clearly better. So I don't know how this medium's going to go for us tyre wear wise. I wanted to give myself the best chance with 1 less lap on it, as it's going to be bloody close. Oh no! Oh, Leclerc with an engine failure. Oh, it's a double horrendous race for Ferrari. It's typically a great hunting ground for this Scuderia, as Antonelli just overtakes us. No, but Leclerc is feeling a whole world of pain more than me. We've just been overtaken by a man we were fighting, but Leclerc's completely out. Ferrari are in disarray. They've gone from 3 Grand Prix wins in a row to maybe now no points, because Leclerc's out. Hamilton's still outside the top 10 at this stage, I think, if everything shakes out the way I think it will, as we now look to try and repass Antonelli. We were ahead of him before the pit stops. We thought to go 1 lap longer, which gave us fresher tyres, but we just couldn't keep it ahead of him on the exit of the pit lane. So now we've got to try and re-overtake him on track, but I'm not going to push too hard like we did at the start of the race. I'm going to go a little bit slow, a little bit conservative, bring the tyres in slowly, not to wear them out too much, and also because myself and Anthony are both catching Ocon, so I'd rather sit back a little bit and then get closer to both drivers, because now we're in a great position where I reckon we could get 2 cars for 1 here, which would be very, very solid and efficient from us. Antonelli looks very likely to try and go for a move on Ocon, but we're just saving battery at this point and waiting, and I think we can catch him napping a little bit. We've schooled Antonelli before in the series as a rookie, but that time we were driving as the 09 world champion JB, this time as Tim Tramnitz, as we line up this pass. DRS open, deploying all the battery we can. Antonelli swerving around left, right, nearly loses the car, and we commit to the right. 1, 2 overtakes on the outside. That's how you do it, but my God, Antonelli giving us a heart attack there. He almost lost the car twice over in that move, and the entire time I basically didn't blink, and we kept our foot in the entire time on the right hand side. Antonelli could have easily lost the back end into me on the right hand side, so I feel very, very fortunate that we came through unscathed. Antonelli then finally makes the overtake on lap 25. Far too many laps later, I must say, for the amount of pace he had versus Ocon. Meanwhile, Hamilton down in P11 behind his old teammate Russell. So Ferrari really hurting. They might be on for 0 points today. That'll kill all the momentum they had in the championship. And speaking about killing momentum, well, Button, clearly after the engine failure, his AI is not taking it too kindly. He's nowhere. JB having a real off day, and the opposite for Max Verstappen. What is this? 31 seconds ahead of the next car. Piastri, surprisingly ahead of Lando in this one. What? Huh? Verstappen today reminding us why he is the reigning world champion going into this season, isn't he? It's then a 4-5 for Williams, by the way. They're the third quickest team today around Singapore. That's the team we're trying to fight for a constructors battle. Yeah, I feel like it's done. Williams are just too good for us this season. And fair play to them, because it's the first year they've looked that great, obviously. You know, many hard years in Formula 1 prior to 2025 here. And in-game, in this alternate universe, they're absolutely cooking as we are now closing up to Tsunoda. But like with Antonelli, I'm going a bit easy. I mean, I'm having to because my tyre wear is kicking in. But I'm actually trying to look at the bigger picture because Tsunoda is catching up to Albon. So I reckon we could use Tsunoda as a way to get Albon and get one overtake done at least on one of the Williams. So my goal isn't even getting Tsunoda. I reckon he'll just go off in the distance once he gets Albon. But I want to follow him through for the overtake on Albon to then help our cause. And I reckon on lap 29, this may be it. Tsunoda as close as he ever has been. Me too to the Red Bull car. Albon feeling the pressure. Oh, Tsunoda spun it. Tsunoda's felt the pressure. Oh, wow. What just happened? Tsunoda has spun it. He's felt the pressure. He's got the tyre wear, clearly of the hard compound, and he has spun it. This is the... Oh, my God. I mean, we did well, actually, not to be closer to Tsunoda. Otherwise, we would have been caught up in his spin and had a T-bone collision. And now it's down to us. We've got one free position on Tsunoda. Now, can we still get Albon, though? Because we're close to him, but I'm feeling the tyres now. You can see I'm struggling for traction out of the slower corners. Albon is as well. We're so close to getting one of the Williams just to limit the damage just a fair little bit. We've got lucky the last two races that Williams have also not scored very well, but this might be a big chance for them as on to the last lap elsewhere. Oh my days, Max Verstappen, stop it. 38 seconds the gap is. That is a statement from Max Verstappen. He is not going down without a fight. Other teams have been quicker, much quicker this season, but the class is ever there from the Dutchman. And he's going to retake the lead of the championship, I think by a decent margin that will be because of Leclerc being out and Hamilton only in P10. And here we are then. It's Williams 4-5, but can we stop that? Again close. Albon loses the back end. This is our last chance. We've saved battery for this straight DRS Open, but we're too far. We're too far. I get desperate. We go for the late lunge, but it's just not going to be enough. It's not going to be the fairy tale overtake on Albon on the last lap. And we're going to have to accept, well, I'll happily accept P6. One more than we would have got without Tsunoda's spin. It's actually a really amazing Grand Prix for us with Tramnitz there. The one stop, hard to soft, work to dream. We had really good stints on the hards and the mediums. Job well done, actually.
And they led every single lap of the race. It was a light to flag victory, and that is total dominance.
It is total dominance from Max Verstappen. That is the definition of dominance. That actually might be the biggest lead I've ever seen an AI take in a career mode race, like without any funny business happening. Like that is actually a madness of race pace. That's scary. If that continues to the other races, the Drivers' Championship might be wrapped up then. Surely. I mean, Ferrari have still a big advantage relative in the Constructors. One bad race, they come back through. They'll surely feel still pretty good, but... I mean, I guess we're going to have to see. We've only got a fine number of races left in this first season. For us, unfortunately, Williams do get a load on us, so I almost feel like it's kind of we're waving goodbye to Williams's Constructors position there. I think we just try and consolidate what we've got, try and boost our fan ratings as much as we can, and obviously next episode actually hoping to lock down the contracts maybe of our drivers as we get some fan bonuses back. But guys, if you have enjoyed this one, be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly full-on content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.